So, um, hi, I'm Peggy Deamer at the Architecture Lobby. It's my pleasure to interview two organizers from Greece's AKEA, an acronym that translates in English to Left Movement of Working Architects, a collective of unemployed, salaried, and self-employed architects that has succeeded in taking over the Athens branch of the Greek Professional Association. In that capacity, it has, at one scale, put pressure on that professional association to rethink how freelance architects, which are numerous in Greece, have access to benefits and collective bargaining. And at the other scale, insists that the profession take a stand against the Greek government's build big, build more economic policy. Welcome, Kostas Vourekas and Stelina Portesi, both of whom are in Athens, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'm going to run through 3 or 4 questions, some of which are personal, others of which are organizational. Let me know if you want to diverge, but if not, here we go. How did you each individually come to recognize that you needed to take action to change the profession in Greece? Was there an aha moment? Kostas, maybe you want to take that first?
Yes, of course. Well, I would say that it was not, let's say, an Archimedes moment, a kind of eureka or something like that, but rather a process. After my graduation, I started to work as an employee in architectural offices of the private sector, a common experience for my generation. And I believe that to be someone else's employee is, in my opinion, always a situation of a kind of oppression, a kind of exploitation, even under the best of circumstances. And the circumstances that I have encountered were not at all ideal or something like that. So the awareness that a change was needed for architectural workers was, to me, I would say, almost natural, something like that.
That's so interesting. And Stelina, tell me about your experience.
Okay, my experience was a bit earlier than Costas because earlier, I mean, in my career, not in time in general. Because when I was a student in School of Architecture, there was the big crisis after 2008. So from the very beginning, I was a student in architecture school. I realized that design produces space and space produces social relationships. So architecture has something to do with politics. So after that, I consider myself as a worker, even if I was a student.
It's so interesting because in many of the different discussions that I've been a part of, that relationship between student, usually as a non-worker, about to be a worker, has begun to change in the way that you're describing. The students recognize that they are both workers and being trained to be workers in the profession. So I really appreciate that answer.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So a second question, which maybe goes to both of you with your organization. What do you as a group believe are the main challenges to transforming the profession there in Greece, or maybe in general? And how has AKEA been organized to overcome those challenges and enact transformation?
Well, I think that the main challenge for architectural workers in Greece today, the main challenges are to have a fair wage and human working conditions. The best way to fight for these rights is to unionize, and there is a union in Greece. It is called the Union of Salaried Technicians. And the main goal of this union today is to restore the collective bargaining processes after their dismantling by the so-called Troika of the IMF, the European Union and the European Central Bank during the debt crisis. For professionals, I think that the main goal is the restoration of minimum rates of pay. Our group, the main idea of our group was this. It was founded in order to bring an emphasis to architectural workers and their issues inside the professional organization, like the Association of Greek Architects. And that it is, let's say, the main idea of the foundation of our group.
I totally agree with Kostas, as you can imagine. And this is because, and this is why, not because, this is why we belong to the same political group. But after all, I would like to add something a bit more practical about our life as a worker. Because I have never been a freelancer since I started my job career. I always was an architectural worker. I was working as an employer. So now I'm working at a small technical company, and I can clearly understand the differences between us, I mean me and my colleagues, and my boss. So I guess that the only solution, and from what I see in my everyday job, the only solution, as I said, for a worker is to be a member of our union, like the union that Kostas referred before. So, and the second thing that I'm trying to do, I always try to do when I am at a working space, it is always talking with my colleagues about our working position in order even more to be unionized.
I wonder how pervasive the idea is for architects in Greece to think about unionization. Is that an obvious idea or something that's growing or something that is kind of seen as mysterious to a majority of architects?
I guess that now it's something that it is growing because even more and more architects are now workers and not freelancers anymore.
I think that a big part of architectural workers have at least heard of the union and its efforts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
Not
interesting.
that they are part of the union, but at least they have heard of it, I think.
Right.
Have heard, of course, of AKEA as well.
Yeah, no. So let me ask you, do you believe that our current institutions, whether they're the professional ones that we've been talking about or academic ones or otherwise, even cultural institutions like the Venice Biennale that we're all participating in, do you think those institutions themselves prevent the change that you envision?
Well, I appreciate that the architecture lobby leaves an open space for criticism, even for Venice Biennale. I appreciate it very much. After that, I'm thinking two things about the question. First, I believe that an academic environment that persuades architects that they are special because they are artists, they are creators, and things like that, contributes to a lack of self-awareness of architectural workers as workers. And second, I believe that professional institutions that consider architects only or mainly as employers or self-employed persons, they fail to protect architectural workers, who are the most unprivileged and vulnerable part of the architectural profession.
And now, my opinion comes again from my experience as a student. I'm always thinking of this era, and I realized that even from the very beginning of our studies, in each school of architecture, in each country, I guess, every student has been at least one sleepless in order to deliver his or her exam projects, actually. I think I find this thing as a preparation, kind of a preparation hall for the rest of our lives as workers. And I think that this is why working overtime in our times has turned into the rule and not an exception anymore.
So true.
Yes. So honestly, I would like just to answer to this question, yes, totally. And not even a word more.
Yeah. So I do wonder whether either or both of you have a vision for a future architecture profession or a future architecture worker. What would be the ideal architecture worker work in the future, if you could speculate on that?
To have a collective bargaining system, to have fair payment, human working conditions, etc. I would say. What do you think?
Yes, of course. These are really important things for our lives as workers. But I would like to think my working future and to have a vision not only as an individual. I would like to build something with all of my colleagues, and I mean all the architectural workers. So I think that my vision it's not so important just as an individual.
And other workers in the working place.
Yes, of course.
I wonder whether even a future, or maybe this tacks on to what you're saying, would be not just collective bargaining and acting as a group, but worker-owned firms. You know, I wonder whether there's a possibility of just getting rid of the employee-employer divide and all workers own the means of their production. Has that been a discussion that happens in Greece, or are there any examples in Greece of worker-owned firms?
Well, many architectural workers at some stage of their professional careers, they do become self-employed or even employers. It's not that it is not possible. And I would say that nobody wants to be an architectural worker forever. If they can, they do it. They become self-employed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I
like
guess I'm
being
saying,
an architectural, sorry, but being an architectural worker, it's like the childhood of architecture. It's something like that.
yeah. Yeah, no, I guess I'm thinking not just about a transition from being an employee to being an employer, but when you actually organize a firm, it's all worker owned. There's no distinction between employer and employee. I asked because it's one of the models that we pursue here, and I just didn't know whether that was part of the discourse there in Greece. And it may not even be your ideal, so I shouldn't push it on you, but just curious.
No,
Yeah.
it's a really good idea, but especially in Greece, there is no legislation that could help an architect or a team of architects to build such a company.
I appreciate
Well,
that. I appreciate that. Yeah.
in my opinion, it is difficult, let's say, under capitalism to avoid conditions of exploitment. And our emphasis has more to do with architectural workers' rights than to avoid all this and
Right.
organized in a working space of your own or something like that.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. And just to say, in the United States, because of capitalism's network of legislation, it's actually very hard to be a worker-owned firm for various reasons. So I'm sympathetic to that not being an easy route when we go there.
Well, we don't say to people don't become self-employed,
Yes, definitely not.
don't build your own
Right.
firm.
Right.
There are,
Right. Yeah. Um, Well, I think that's the end of my questions. I mean, do you have any questions for me that haven't come up before we end this?
Can we give an advice to new architects?
For sure. Yes.
Will we meet
Yes.
at the Venice Biennale?
The first piece of advice.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So my advice to new architects, it's just that. Never accept to work without getting paid. Even if you work during your scheduled working time, or if you work overtime, never, never, ever accept to work without getting paid.
Absolutely.
My advice is that at the workplace, the best potential allies of architectural workers are other workers, not other architects.
Oh, totally appreciate that. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, no, and for anybody who is actually watching this at the Venice Biennale, if you're not an architect, this still is a story that relates to you. Chances are you're a worker, and we need to align. Workers of the world unite. Yeah, such a fabulous way to end. Thank you both so much. I admire the work that you're doing, and I really appreciate your giving the time to this interview. So,
Thank you, and
thank
we
you.
are very sorry for the time for this
No,
confusion.
no, please, 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 please don't worry. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.